Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another week of breakdown predictions. This week we got UFC 312, headlined by Dricus du Plessis, the middleweight champion, looking to retain his belt and beat the man that he took the belt from for the second time, Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland obviously looking to even square at 1-1 with Dricus du Plessis, maybe make a rubber match between those two. And then in the co-main event, we have another really interesting title fight between Weili Zhang and Tatiana Suarez. The rest of the card, not the greatest card, but it's still, I think, some fun matchups in terms of what they're going to produce in the cage. I think that these guys are going to throw down in a lot of these fights, and it's going to have fun action. But before we get into it, man, hit the like button, put a comment down below. Go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. I am going to be doing a free trial right now, and there's a lot of MMA events going on. Tomorrow they have the Invicta show going on. There's an LFA show going on this weekend. There obviously is the UFC, but there's other events going on as well. I believe that there is a Fury FC. There's a A1 combat show. So there's a lot of MMA that I'm going to be looking into to potentially give you guys some bets, give you guys some breakdowns. And if you want access to that, patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru is where to go. But let's get into this fight card here. And the first fight of the night, HyunSung Park taking on Nyamjargal Tumendemberel. And Asia Crime, Park, he hasn't fought in a while. The last time that he fought was actually December of 2023. He was going to fight at UFC 302 versus Andre Lima, but a knee injury knocked him out of all of 2024, and obviously he's getting back into it now. But 2-0 in the UFC, but he really hasn't beaten anyone UFC level yet. He beat Sungkook Choi, that was a Road to UFC Finals fight, and after that, Choi never got another fight in the UFC. And then he beat Shannon Ross, who's one of the worst UFC flyweights in recent memory. But Nyamjargal is another one of these guys that came into the UFC through Road to UFC tournament. So kind of on the same scene as HyunSung Park. He had a hard debut, a lot harder than the guys that Park had to fight with Carlos Hernandez. And he had a couple moments during the fight where he rocked him, but he just was too inactive and ended up losing the fight. But you look at how these guys match up. HyunSung Park, he has in my opinion, pretty decent boxing style where picks his shots well, good counters. Early on, when he's cutting the cage off and kind of walking you down, before he gets the gauge on how fast you are closing the distance, you can land on him, and that's where Nyamjargal, I think, is going to have a chance to potentially finish Park. Nyamjargal, if he wins, I think it's going to be a knockout. He has these long arms. He'll explode in with these wild unorthodox attacks and try to knock you out. His nickname is the Art of the Knockout, and you look at the majority of his wins, they are finishes. But he's not necessarily super technical on the feet. It's all these wild blitzes from unorthodox angles, and then he can be inactive until he does let go of strikes. And I feel like HyunSung Park, if he doesn't get caught early, is going to be able to time some takedowns, and I could see him getting an early submission even. And on top of that, even on the feet, I think as the fight goes on, he's going to be able to start to find his counters a little bit more and control the stand-up better as well. So I do think he needs to be careful early and just throughout the fight, because Tumendemberel is wild, but Park has better technical striking to me. I think he can compete on the feet, and he should have a big advantage on the ground. I mean, we saw Tumendemberel get taken down at will in his UFC debut. Even in his fight with Top Noi Kiram, who is pretty much a pure Muay Thai fighter, he was losing some positions, getting controlled for portions of that fight. And then we saw HyunSung Park fight the same opponent, and he was able to run through him pretty easily. So I feel like HyunSung Park is just on another level on the ground, and if he was smart, he'd take it to the mat and try to find that submission, and that's what I think he's going to do. So HyunSung Park for me is going to be the prediction in the first fight of the night. And second fight of the night that we got here is Anshul Jubli and Salkilld. And with Salkilld, Good performance on the Contender Series where he went in there, ended up beating Gage Young, who's another pretty high-level prospect in a fun fight. And he has a good resume where he's beaten some good guys on the Australian scene. He beat Joseph Luciano, who's in PFL now. And I feel like he has a pretty decent style. He's rugged, comes forward. His striking is a little awkward, but it's effective enough. He's powerful, and then he mixes in the takedowns, has pretty decent grappling, wrestling, and his ability to push the pace and just put a lot of volume out there is really good. And with Anshul Jubli, he's kind of a counter striker. He gets a lot of shit from his last fight where, he dropped the ball with his opponent screaming in his face, barking in his face, and kind of freezing him. But Jubli does have decent striking skills, like his ability to point fight off the back foot, land pull counters, and just kind of keep the range isn't bad. But I feel like Salkilld, he might, have some problems early on with Jubli. Maybe Jubli could be piecing him up for a couple minutes, but I think once Salkilld starts to connect and actually get in a range and force some exchanges, I think Jubli's going to start to slow down and break like we saw him do against Breeden. And with Breeden, there was no real threat of the takedown or grappling. And with Anshul Jubli, in this fight, Salkilld is going to be looking to mix in some takedowns. And I feel as if Jubli's stance, even though he was able to win his one UFC fight with grappling, it's going to give up takedowns. And I think that Salkilld can take advantage of that. So I'm going to say Salkilld wins on the ground either via ground and pound or submission in the second or third round here in the second fight of the night. And continuing on through the card, we got Kevin Jousset versus Jonathan Micallef. This one I don't really have a super long breakdown because I'm not the most confident, but I'm going to go with Kevin Jousset here. I get the Micallef love. I see some people picking him this week. Looks like a big, strong grappler guy, but I feel like he tries to get a lot of clinch takedowns. With Kevin Jousset's judo background, it's going to be hard to take him down with trips, throws, in the clinch. And training at City Kickboxing, man, you could say whatever you want about that gym. Maybe they're kind of declining. Their takedown defense is on point. So Jousset, I think, is going to be able to defend takedowns, keep it standing for the most part. I wasn't super impressed, blown away with Micallef's wrestling or anything like that. If he gets on top of Jousset, then there could be trouble. But I personally think that Jousset is going to be able to keep it on the feet, land the calf kicks, catch Micallef as he's coming in. Micallef seems like he throws really wide and is very hittable, closing that gap. I think Jousset can connect with some big punches. And Jousset did gas out and kind of quit his last fight, but the pace in that match was insane. And I just don't think that Jonathan Micallef is going to keep that pace. I've seen Micallef get tired in fights himself. So I just think Jousset is a little bit too experienced, a little bit too good of a striker at this point, and I'm going to pick him to win a decision there in that matchup. But next fight here on the card, Cody Steele versus Rongzhu. Super excited for this fight, man. I feel like this is one of the best fights on the card. It's going to produce guaranteed violence, if you ask me. You look at Cody Steele, the guy does have a really good jiu-jitsu background. He only has one submission in MMA, but I think that's, you can't really look at it in that way. He's just not been able to find the submissions, but his grappling is still very high level. And he's the one with the momentum here. He's undefeated, 7-0, but first UFC fight, and he's taking on Rongzhu, who is just 24 years old, but the guy has fought 4 times in the UFC now, and he has he has a lot of fights. So it's like, do you believe that Cody Steele is going to go in there and be able to counteract that experience with just being a dog? That's what's going to have to be, because I think this fight's going to be a war, man. I mean, Cody Steele, he does have that high-level jiu-jitsu pedigree. Rongzhu has been submitted 4 times in the past, but the only way I kind of see a submission win here is if Zhu gets hurt and shoots it himself, because I don't really see Cody Steele taking down Rongzhu. Rongzhu has a ton of experience defending takedowns. You could tell that he's put a lot of emphasis on that, gotten better with that. Training with City Kickboxing, his takedown defense, I think, is going to be on point. And Kody Steele doesn't really have a ton of experience. He's never fought a striker on Rongzhu's level. So we're going to see if his Marauder style will be effective. I mean, he has insane pressure, really good chin, really good cardio, puts a foot on the gas. He'll walk you down, try to slip and rip, but he absorbs a lot of damage and just tries to back you up, land combinations. His chin is really high in the air, but he's ripping huge body head punches. He's throwing with bad intentions. So a lot of times guys are just blocking and not really throwing back at him. But Rongzhu is a pocket brawler in his own right. I don't really see him backing down. He's going to stand in the pocket, pick his own shots, throw hard combinations. And I think Rongzhu has sharper hands, better defense. Both guys have big power, but I think Steele has more power. It's just if he's going to connect clean or if Rongzhu's going to connect clean. And I kind of feel like Rongzhu's going to connect cleaner. But Rongzhu can't get stagnant and get backed up where they can get in close range and Kody Steele could land a big knee or elbow. And I think that leg kicks or Rongzhu need to be a big part of his game in this one. I think that he needs to throw a lot of leg kicks, try to slow Kody Steele down with the pressure, and see if he could be the guy that starts backing Kody Steele up and see how he reacts to that. But his last fight, Rongzhu, he got cut with an elbow, and it cost him the fight, but it was an intercepting elbow, and I don't really see Kody Steele landing that. If Kody Steele lands an elbow, I think it's going to be in the clinch and close range. I don't see him, timing an elbow like with finesse like that at distance, and I just feel like, man, it's a hard one for me. Conditioning-wise, I think both guys have great conditioning. Neither guy has been knocked out before. I think this fight should be like a pick-em. And if Rongzhu has the ability to keep it standing, which I think he does, I think he has the better stand-up, he should be able to land hard counters, make Steele respect him. His leg kicks need to be there. And I just see this as a lesson for Steele here, just like Zhu had to go through. Rongzhu has so much experience. I see him being calmer, picking the better shots, eventually rocking Steele. And then I think he's going to take him out in the second or third. So I'm going to go with the upset in this one. I'm going to go with Rongzhu to get the victory here over Kody Steele and give Kody Steele his first 0. His first L. And this next one, we got an interesting and fun matchup here with Aleksandre Topuria taking on Colby Thicknesse. Little bit of a prelude to the Ilya Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski fight, because Colby Thicknesse is one of the main training partners for Alex Volkanovski. You actually see Alex Volkanovski in Colby Thicknesse's corner in regional scene fights in Australia, and he's going to be in the corner for Colby Thicknesse on Saturday night. And obviously with Aleksandre Topuria being Ilya's brother and then being so close, Ilya is going to be in the corner of Alexander, and it's going to be a battle there where they're going to be facing off coach versus coach, and then it's going to be them mano a mano as well. But so that's a little bit interesting tidbit. And one thing that I did find really strange about this fight, I was watching a Colby Thicknesse interview, and he was talking about how he got the fight. He was saying that Topuria's manager called him and offered him the fight. And I was like, bro, that's a little bit weird. That's kind of fishy, right? It's like, I don't know. They're picking this guy, hand-picking him, because I think it's a decent storyline with what I just said, and they think he's an easy duck, easy win. But you're looking at it from a stylistic perspective. Colby Thicknesse, I believe he is the Hex champion, and on the feet, his striking looks really rudimentary. I mean, he likes to just kind of move around, and he'll close the distance with some awkward strikes to use to get in on the takedown, but it seems like he's very hittable and kind of tough guy. He's hard to knock out. You kind of have to knock him unconscious to get him out of there, and I've seen him get dropped like 3-4 times in round 1 of a fight and come back and use his wrestling to kind of break the guy and win. But on the feet, it's a little bit rough with Colby Thicknesse. And Topuria, his striking looks good, man. I'm impressed with his striking. Obviously, you have to take it with a grain of salt with who he's been fighting, but similar style with the boxing stance, good pressure, trying to slip and counter with the overhands like Ilya. And it seems like he has this. I don't know if he has as much power. We're gonna have to determine that as he fights better guys. But he's been able to put these lower level guys down with punches, and it seems like his grappling, his wrestling is really high level too. And I just don't see many outs for Colby Thicknesse here. I mean, the only thing that Thicknesse could potentially bank on is bringing this fight into the later rounds, because Topuria has fought, a bunch of trash cans in his career, kind of stat padded his way up here. Whereas Thicknesse has fought some decent guys. Like I said, he's had fights where he's had to come through adversity. So Topuria, who's never been out of the first round in a win, if Thicknesse can get him out of round one, maybe extend the fight, something could happen for him. But I just feel like Topuria is more athletic, the much better striker, probably going to knock him out in the first round. And if he wants, I think he could take him down and finish him on the ground too. I just think Topuria is on another level here. And I'm kind of riding this Aleksandre Topuria hype train until he goes out there and shows me that he's like a Mo Usman or something like that type of brother in the game. I'm going to say that he's good because he's getting some high rave reviews from other fighters, and I feel like Topuria is going to be the goods there. So I'm going to say wins in round one. But next fight, we got Cong Wang versus Bruna Brasil. And yeah, man, this is another really great fight. Bruna Brasil moving up to 125, which I think is a little interesting. I didn't expect that from her. I felt like she was doing great at 115. She was kind of starting to get some momentum. And she wasn't the biggest 115er to me. I mean, she was tall, but I didn't think she was that thick, But maybe she just likes this matchup. I'm not too sure. But Cong Wang, obviously, she was one of the biggest hype trains of 2024. It was kind of rolling downhill with the Alex Pereira storyline, beating Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. But after the win over Victoria Leonardo, which was one of the sweetest one-punch knockouts in women's MMA history for UFC, she took a bad loss to Gabriela Fernandez, where she was winning the fight, but it looked like she maybe got a little too overconfident, got hit with a head kick, and then went into brawl mode, got clipped, and just taken out there. And I do think Gabriela Fernandez is underrated. She has good striking, so it was a bad loss. I'm not going to say it wasn't the worst loss. It was a really bad loss, but Fernandez can crack, and she was able to land on Wang and knock her out, which was how she would have won if she did, and that's what happened. But, from a stylish perspective, I really love this matchup. Bruna Brasil, she has dangerous weapons, and that makes this fight fun. On top of that, Wang just got almost knocked out cold in November, so it hasn't been that long of a layoff since then. But boxing-wise, Cong Wang has probably the best boxing for women in the UFC. Her jabs, her 1-2s, her ability to work in the pocket, the way she goes to the body. She's just super skillful, and she's a solid kicking game, but doesn't throw nearly as many kicks. It is mostly hands, and she tries to use her eyes, her defense, her footwork to cut the cage off, get in the pocket, get you to miss, use her jab to get her range, land fast combos, and eventually if you get overzealous or you leave an opening, she has clearly big power. I mean, she was able to knock out Leonardo with that 1-2, which you don't really see. Bruna Brasil, I mean, she can't compete in the boxing. She shouldn't even try. I mean, she should look to spam hard kicks, body kicks, head kicks. Even if she's kicking the arms, it's effective. And I think if she can land those kicks from range, maybe some knees as Wang tries to get inside, that could potentially be effective, and then trying to grab as they get inside. In Wang's fight, like I said, with Fernandez, it looked like she did kind of get hit with the head kick, so anything is possible, but I think this is going to be more of a stand-up fight. I don't see Bruno getting takedowns, and to predict Cong Wang to lose a stand-up fight, I mean, I get she just did get dropped and submitted, but I don't think that's going to happen to her too many times in these type of matchups, unless she's truly a fraud, which I don't think she is with all her high-level kickboxing background or boxing background. I think she wins this one. I'm going to say she's a little more tentative, a little more cautious. Maybe it's a little bit more of a point fighter approach in this one instead of being really aggressive, confident, and believing she's going to get the finish. And I'm going to say Cong wins a decision over Bruna, Brazil. But moving it along, we got Nolan versus Slava Borschev in this next one. And earlier in the week, I was kind of leaning more towards Nolan, but after looking into a couple more fights, doing a little bit more stuff, research, I'm leaning towards Borschev. I just feel like I was watching Nolan's fights, and I was banking more when I was thinking about it. Like, this guy's young, he's getting better, but when I'm watching his fights, he's making the same mistakes, man. I don't see a lot of improvements from him, and I feel like these guys are going to stand and strike for 3 rounds, and they're both chinny, but I just think that Slava, he's going to be using his footwork better. He's going to be the more patient striker, and I think that he's going to be able to counter Nolan. Nolan is a tall guy that doesn't necessarily have great boxing defense, and I think that's going to be money for Slava's left hook to land. I could see Slava landing a couple left hooks to the body, getting Nolan to kind of respect that, and then coming up to the head with a counter left hook that knocks Nolan out, and getting this win, man. I don't see Nolan taking him down, and I feel like Slava Borschev can win a decision or can win via knockout. Obviously, his chin is not the greatest, so he can get knocked out himself, but I just think that Slava Borschev is going to win this fight more than likely. So, yeah, Nolan, decent striker, but I got Slava there. And Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Another really good matchup here. I think this is going to produce fireworks. Anytime you see Gabe Santos in the cage, you know it's going to be chaos. You watch some of his fights outside the UFC, they're some of the best fights you've seen. And then even his fight with David Onama, the fight that he had with Lerone Murphy, he's had some bangers in the UFC as well. Even the Yi Zhao fight was entertaining. But Jack Jenkins, he's also a fun fighter to watch. He has the nasty leg kicks, good pressure, and nasty in the pocket. His wrestling defense is okay. I wouldn't say it's the greatest, but he is good at using the cage to get back up and kind of getting back to the feet and breaking you. If you do take him down, you have to have that cardio to hold him down, especially if you're going to take him down near the fence where you can use that to get back up. But I just feel like Jack Jenkins, he's a little bit low volume on the feet. He wants to walk you down and use those leg kicks to cut you off and then only really open up in the pocket where he could know that he can land a rip to the body, rip to the head, and get in these exchanges and kind of try to find these power kill shots. I feel like at range, he doesn't have the longest reach and he doesn't really throw a lot of straight shots. He doesn't offer too much, and he's good at staying tight to close the distance, not eating a lot of damage. But I think Gabe Santos is going to be sticking and moving on him, being really active at distance, throwing volume, being more aggressive. And I think that he's also going to be able to mix in takedowns if Jack Jenkins gets a little overzealous. I think he's going to have a counter to the leg kicks, whatever it is. Either maybe he's going to use it to get takedowns, use it to counter with punches. And I just think that Gabriel Santos is just a better fighter than Jack Jenkins overall. He's going to be more active. I feel like he has more killer instinct as well. Jack Jenkins has a lot of these fights where he lets bums and jobbers go all the way to distance with him, and I don't like seeing that. So I just feel like Gabriel Santos is going to get the victory there. But first fight on the main card, we got another banger. We got Jake Matthews coming back fighting Francisco Prado. And Jake Matthews, guy that's been in the UFC since he's 19, so Francisco Prado's kind of following in Jake Matthews' blueprint where he came to the UFC at 20. So if Francisco Prado wants to look at a guy to model his career after, be in the game 10 plus years after debuting at such a young age, Jake Matthews might be the guy to look at. But this weekend, he's the enemy. And Prado coming up 15 pounds in this one, which is interesting. The guy is only 22 and he hasn't fought in a while, so you don't know what his body composition is like, or maybe he can't make 155 anymore. But coming up 15 pounds, that's a lot of weight, and I do think he's going to be undersized versus Jake Matthews. He also doesn't have the longest arm reach, which I think is going to be an issue for him in this division moving forward if he does stay here. But Jake Matthews, kind of been up and down in the UFC. He has a nice record, like 13-7, but the last 4 or 5 years, he just hasn't really been super consistent. And he was similar to Prado, where he also started his career out at 155. That's where I believe he has the majority of his wins in the UFC. and then came up to 170 after a few fights in the organization. But Matthews, obviously, like I said, I think he has 13-7 record in the UFC, so 20 UFC fights, almost double more wins than he has losses. Francisco Prado, he's 1-2 in 3 UFC fights. He's had some hard matches though, man. Daniel Zellhuber, he had Jamie Malarkey on short notice, and then he got the win over Zatar. But you look at how these guys match up. On the feet, it's going to be very entertaining. I feel like Jake Matthews is an underrated boxer. The guy's boxing is really high level for 170, man. I feel like he's probably, if you just want to do a top 15 for pure boxers, I think Jake Matthews would be there in the welterweight division. And he's good at sticking and moving off the back foot, using his jab, using that check hook, and then pulling you into big combinations. He has fast hand speed. His head movement is good. If you're in the pocket with him, he can slip and rip with you. But he does kind of brawl and, trust his chin. And he's never been knocked out. I believe the fight with Semmelsberger was the only time he kind of got beat up pretty badly with the striking. So his chin has always held up really well historically. And he doesn't have fight-ending power, but he has enough power to kind of not let you just bully him. And then he can mix in takedowns and put you on your back. And if you look at how Jake Matthews has lost most of his fights, it's usually he's fighting bigger grapplers that kind of take him down and smother him, and he's not really good off of his back. And that's where he does not want to find himself with Francisco Prado, because Francisco Prado's ground and pound is vicious, and if Jake Matthews ends up on bottom versus Prado, that's a danger zone for him. But if Matthews is on the feet, sticking and moving, I think that he's going to be able to eventually land and be effective. Prado's going to come hard early. I think Prado, his cardio isn't terrible, but he definitely slows down after round 1. I think he's going to be the most dangerous early. He's going to be trying to close that distance and, land these big shots. But I just feel like the likelihood of him knocking out Jake Matthews is not that likely. I mean, he's going to be looking for the overhands for that big left hook. But if these bigger guys with, a lot of power haven't been able to knock out Jake Matthews, I don't think you can really bank on Prado doing it. And I don't think Prado can compete for 3 rounds on the feet. I feel like Matthews will kind of start to pull away as time goes on with the experience and just the boxing prowess. And I think if he's struggling on the feet where it's, close enough or maybe he's losing, he can get takedowns and control Prado. I think he's going to be a little bit smaller. And I think that Matthews has the better grappling and the better wrestling. So I just think Jake Matthews is too experienced, too big, and is going to get the victory here over Francisco Prado in his home country. He's also like 13-3 in Australia, so he's done really well in Australia historically. But Jim Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato in this next one. I mean, hard fight where you're going to be super confident on either side here, because I just feel like Bellato, not the most trustworthy guy. He almost got knocked out by Ihor Potieria. We've seen him get knocked out in Contender Series by Vitor Petrino. He got knocked out by Vitor Petrino as well in a fight outside the Contender Series. I feel like his durability might not be the greatest, but when you're talking about durability and Jim Crute, Crute's durability is not like the worst. I mean, because I think people kind of trash the guy's chin, but it's more that he's just eating so many shots, and it's just so reckless. He's so slow on the feet, no head movement. And, man, he hasn't fought in a long time. Maybe he's going to come in here and have improved striking skills. The guy's only 28 years old. It's pretty hard to believe. But Bellato, he does have some power. He did drop Vitor Petrino before getting knocked out himself. He will land, counter jabs, counter crosses, counter overhands. And I feel like he's gonna hold the center. Both these guys are going to be throwing leg kicks and they're going to be exchanging. I just think Bellato's going to be a little sharper. He's been more active. He's a little bit bigger. And I think he's going to be able to land these straight punches first and rock Jim Crute. Jim Crute is going to have to get on the wrestling. His wrestling is high level. I mean, I will say the guy is nice. Double leg. He has good clinch takedowns. It's just, I don't know if he's going to be able to really do much on the ground with Bellato. Bellato has good jiu-jitsu. He has a good guard. You've seen him use his guard to recover and eventually sweep and get in top position and finish a fight. And I just lean towards the more active guy here. I think Bilado's going to get him out of there. I'll say Bilado via second round knockout over Jim Crute. And next fight on the card, Taliesin Teixeira versus Justin Tafa. Don't really know what to think about this one, man. I mean, I think Teixeira is more skillful and should win this fight, but I'm going to go with Justin Tafa to win. I just feel like the experience is going to be the difference. You're looking at Teixeira, the guy, 6'7" monster, super long reach. He is walking guys down, but he's good at staying long. He uses the jab. He'll throw straight punches. He's ripping the body. I feel like his offense is good. But you see when he hurts guys, he gets so overzealous. He just starts throwing wild. His chin is right in the air. And, you can hate Justin Tafa and talk shit about him all you want. But the guy, if he connects, he can knock your lights out. He's tough. He's going to be in there. And I just feel like Teixeira is going to give him those openings to land a big overhand on him, to land a big left hook. And I think Justin Tafa is going to take those openings and catch Teixeira early and knock him out. I think Teixeira could be, doing really good, looking like he's going to be dominating the fight and get a knockout. And then out of nowhere, Tafa puts him out. But, we have seen Tafa knocked out cold. We've never seen Teixeira lose. So I get why he's a favorite. But I think the line is close for a reason, and I think it's because you've seen Teixeira, like his last fight, man. He's fighting a guy that's used to fight at 170, hadn't fought in years, came up to heavyweight, looked like he was fat and out of shape, and he was rocking Teixeira, and Teixeira eventually did knock him out. But it's like, man, if you're letting those shots get in on you versus that guy, and you're getting kind of hurt by it, or it looks like you're affected, how is it going to be with Tafa? So I think Tafa is going to get the knockout in that one in the first round. But co-main event time, Zhang Weili taking on Tatiana Suarez. Man, this is probably the best pound-for-pound female fight you could put on in all MMA right now. I feel like you could make an argument that skill for skill, this is the number one, number two pound-for-pound females currently. Zhang Weili, obviously she's been a long-time champion, two-time champion in this division. I think her and Rose are the only two that have been able to say that they're two-time champions. And, this is her second run. She's 35 now, and she's been able to get by in these decisions where I feel like she hasn't been as dominant as her previous self. I mean, the Amanda Lemos one was really dominant, but Nyamjargal got some takedowns. She dropped her. And I feel like you're starting to see maybe a little bit of slippage from Weili Zhang. But in that one, she did overall, do enough to get the win and dominate. But she's facing a different animal here with Tatiana Suarez. Undefeated, 10-0. Arguably the most credentialed wrestler in the entire UFC, female or male right now. And she's had to deal with so much adversity. It almost feels like she's destined for this title here. And she has the kryptonite, the thing that Weili Zhang has had the most issues with in her MMA career and UFC career. Obviously, she had the head kick loss to Rose where anyone can get caught. But her takedown offense is 50%. I mean, that's on a large sample size as well. She's been taken down many times throughout her UFC career, and she's gotten reversed by girls like Rose Namajunas, like Nyamjargal, controlled on her back. And I just feel like if those girls are able to take you down and control you or reverse you, get you in bad positions on the ground, I think Tatiana Suarez is going to be able to do it as well. Tatiana Suarez is going to have a big size advantage. I feel like on the feet, people are discounting Suarez a little bit. I'm not saying she can compete 5 rounds if it's all stand up and get the win, but if these girls are standing up, Tatiana's going to have the size advantage, the reach advantage. She's going to have nice kicks, and Zhang Weili is going to have to close the distance to land on her. She's just going to be getting kicked at range, and that's where Tatiana's going to have the chance to get the takedowns or grab, and I feel like Tatiana's going to be able to do that. Zhang Weili, I don't see her being able to implement any grappling in this one, which she's been implementing grappling more and more in her recent victories. I think if she tries to shoot in on Tati, she's going to get reversed. She's going to get put in a potential front headlock series and, caught in a darce, caught in an anaconda, caught in a guillotine. And I just feel like Suarez is going to run her here, man. I think Suarez is going to be able to get her tired with the wrestling. I hear a lot of people talking about Suarez's cardio being a potential issue, but I think that it's going to be the other way around. I think it's going to be Weili Zhang getting tired from all the scrambles, from the hard wrestling. And I'm going to say Tatiana Suarez gets a third round submission in this fight. So that's going to be my prediction here. I'm going to say Tatiana Suarez takes the belt in fairly dominant fashion in this matchup here. And finally, we got the main event, Sean Strickland taking on Dricus du Plessis. And this is a rematch from a really closely contested fight the first time these guys met up. I actually felt like Sean won that one the first time. But this one, man, I just feel like Dricus is going to get this victory. Even after saying Sean won the first fight, I could see why it's hard for him to win decision versus Dricus, because you look at the majority of the opponents that Sean Strickland fights, his defense is so good that guys don't want to just sit in the pocket and exchange with him or walk him down, because they're going to be missing a lot. And even if Sean's not necessarily capitalizing on it with counters or returning, they're afraid to get tired. But Dricus, man, this guy doesn't give a shit. I mean, the guy is like walking down Sean Strickland, not letting Sean control the center or back him up. And that's the way to beat Sean, or one of the ways. You got to pressure Sean, get Sean on the back foot where, yeah, he might be landing the jab, he might be landing the teep, he might be looking pretty and not getting hit. And maybe he's even, if it's a computer algorithm or something, doing better, landing more, landing cleaner, being the sharper, more technical striker. But you see Dricus du Plessis coming forward, throwing wild shots, maybe connecting every so often, and it looks like it's a damaging strike. And that's enough to, make it really close on the judges, or maybe even lean towards Dricus, because people are seeing, hey, maybe Sean is doing some nice stuff off the back foot, but none of it is really super damaging or looking to finish the fight. And Dricus is coming forward, and when he lands, he's doing more damage. And I feel like Dricus is going to be more active. Sean puts up crazy volume numbers, but Dricus's volume is a little different, where it's going to be him throwing harder, him throwing a lot more variety. And I feel like even though Dricus might not necessarily be able to control Sean on the ground, if he does go for takedowns, mixing it up, getting Sean a little bit less willing to let go with his offense, be a little bit more hesitant, is going to be something that he could do. And I feel like Dricus is going to throw a lot of kicks in this fight. He's going to smash the arms of Sean. He's going to throw head kicks and really try to use that as a big part of his game plan, because I think he could shut down, a lot, not even shut down, but just you kick Sean's legs when he's doing those, or arms when he's doing those down blocks and stuff like that, and just kind of keep him at bay while you're doing more offense. And I don't know. I just like Dricus in this one. I feel like he's going to be the guy coming forward. He's going to be the guy doing more, throwing more. He's the guy that has the more finishing threat and the more diverse skill set in terms of, I think he's going to be able to mix in some takedowns and things like that. And for Sean to win this fight and win it decisively, I think he has to believe more in his power and in his technique and stand his ground more, man. Stay in the pocket, exchange with Dricus, and see if you can get the better of that, land hard shots and hurt Dricus. Because I feel like you could potentially do that, but then you look at Sean's record, it's like the guy's been in 8 split decisions. So clearly he's very, very comfortable being in that type of fight where he's on the back foot, he's moving, he's accumulating points, and it's tit for tat, very close. And if he plays it like that again, I just think Dricus is going to win off optics and retain his belt. So even though I would rather want Sean to get the belt back, I'm going to say Dricus du Plessis wins and still retains his title and goes 2-0 on Sean Strickland. So there you have it, guys. That's my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC 312. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As far as my parlay of the week and my most confident pick goes on this card, for my most confident pick, I guess I'll go with Salkilld for that. And for the parlay of the week for this card, I would say to go with the parlay of Aleksandre Topuria, Quillian Salkilld, and Cong Wang. I believe that parlay will hit for you. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button. Put a comment down below, like I said. Patreon.com/PredictionGuru. Go there, sign up, help support the channel, keep it going, and make yourself some money. And besides that, man, thanks for always sticking around, supporting the channel. We're going to be doing another live stream tomorrow. Come through, be in the chat, man. Would really want some more interaction on that. That would be awesome. And, yeah, besides that, we're out. Peace.